Welcome to Amiga Ireland. It's the 6th of September. This is our first podcast of this month. We're going to have an interview coming up in 2 weeks' time, which we'll talk about in a little while. But first, Luke, how have you been doing?
Oh, not too bad, thank you very much. I've been helping different people in setting up their Amigas, especially the Wi-Fi cards, with some success, and I'm really glad about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I've seen you've been busy on the forums and the Facebook groups. All right, yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, really good, to be honest, and I'm really glad because it's been successful.
That is some dedication, Luke, for a man who's just had a child, and
it's all been done during the time she's been sleeping.
Good for you. And how's your online shop going?
Well, to be honest, pretty all right as well. It's been developing pretty nicely.
Good stuff. Well, I've got one of your Wi-Fi cards, and it's excellent and really good value. So.
Thank you very much for your kind words.
How about you, Rob? How are you getting on?
Oh, I'm all right. Been pretty busy with a whole other rake of Amigas that are in for repair. It's the usual story. But I've been home to Ireland a couple of times since the last one, and over and back, and running around with the little baby, and that's kind of most of my time. But the last couple of days, a while ago, I got an Amiga 2000 over here that was fully loaded but had a lot of problems, and it was in pretty poor shape. So the last couple of days now, I've been getting that up and running now, and it's almost there. So I just have to reassemble my keyboard now after it's had a nice deep clean. It was in desperate need of it. Jesus, you should have seen the muck that came out of it. It was awful. But, yeah.
Old muck too, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So 20 years of nicotine and dirt and manky. Okay. But it looks much better now. Yeah.
God praise the work.
Yeah.
We've had friends of the family over from Greece, and one friend this time, Sarandis, and my family were bringing him around to different places like Connemara and the Titanic Museum in Belfast. I joined them for that one as we passed through on to see the Giant's Causeway. And it was really nice to spend some time with some Greek friends, and it's been a Greek themed month actually, but some more news on that front coming up later.
Okay, first up, there's a project that's been going on for a while to use PowerPC accelerators in mediator boards. So, this was a thing a while ago that Lbox were developing a Shark PPC accelerator, and it never really came to anything. And basically, it was a Mac accelerator that was being repurposed for the Amiga. So it never came to anything. But a few very, very clever people seem to have taken it upon themselves to do this work anyway, and so they've managed to get it working. But recently, just a couple of weeks ago, they actually found, so normally these accelerators are, pretty expensive, still a few £100. But, for that though, you get the fastest classic PPC that you can get. But there recently, someone figured out that there are these particular network cards that had a PowerPC processor on them and 64 megs of RAM. And so it's a kind of a heavy-duty network card, but someone's managed to hack that into working as an actual as a CPU on the system, so as a coprocessor. And so there are videos floating around now of Quake running at a pretty impressive rate of speed that are just impossible even on a classic PowerPC. It's an incredible feat of hackery. There's a thread on it in EAB, and as a friend of mine in Glasgow here has one set up, and he's been giving feedback and helping out with the testing, and it's ridiculous really. But it's very impressive work.
Yeah, the funny thing is actually that Lbox announced a Shark back in I think 2000,
a long time ago anyway.
Yeah, a long time ago, and then later on they moved it and postponed it until Amiga OS 4 is released for classic Amigas. Then the whole subject just died out, and then out of a sudden someone comes in and says look, I've got it running on my Amiga 3000 and it's been running really well, and respect All I can say is just respect. Regarding those network cards with PowerPC processor and the Quake running at the just ridiculous speeds, I think it's one more thing is worth mentioning, because that Quake is running on Amiga 1200. Yeah. And Sonnets, so far, they've been running only on Amigas 3000 and 4000. So that's really huge progress, to be honest, and that's huge news. That's huge news regarding PowerPC on a classic Amiga. Other thing is, I remember that 8 or 10 years ago, there were loads of Sonnets on eBay, even in UK, in America, even in Poland, you were able to buy them. And in magazines, I think it was the Encore company that produced them. In magazines, there were loads of them as well. But later on, they just trashed them. All of them, all that's, stock. So they... Yeah. So it's just really purely just impossible to buy now. A friend of mine in Japan's just got 2 of them as well in some new old stock stuff, but that was just a pure accident. So lucky him.
So if you want to get one of these repurposed Apple PPC cards now, what kind of money are you talking?
Between 300 and 500 quid. I think.
Yeah, they seem to be quite popular with the retro Mac guys as well.
Yeah.
So they're rare and they shoot up in price. They're kind of almost like an Amiga PowerPC accelerator at this stage.
Yeah. These network cards are a bit cheaper, and there's a guy, I think, in America. He's got tons of them, at least 500, and he sells them pretty cheap, but there's a need for some sort of adapter as well. So he sells those adapters actually now for pretty ridiculous money. So, but it is possible to obtain them.
And very, very, like I say, very impressive feat in general, all things considered. It's incredible.
That's right. I absolutely agree. So fingers crossed for that project because it's massive.
Yeah, and it's early days yet, so don't get too excited. There's a lot of software messing about to be done, and still doesn't work properly with sound, and there's a few other little issues, but it's getting there.
Yeah, and the library, Sonnet library gets upgraded all the time, but new releases are on Amiga on a regular basis, which is very promising at the same time as well.
Yep.
Yeah. We've got another news. This time this is Amiga kit for Macintosh, including Rabbit Hole. Rabbit Hole is a thing that allows you to run, for example, Firefox at the same time when you're running Amiga kit, which is pretty alright as well, I think, because we need a decent browser, and it seems that when OWB development stopped, the NG, society is in a constant lack of a decent, modern web browser. If you have time, any of you guys, have a look. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've actually been playing around with this on my own MacBook, and there's some really up-to-date documentation that they have shared out from Google Docs that help you with the fairly lengthy installation process, especially if you have to go and get the ROMs and stuff. But the way I did it was I used Amiga Forever from Cloanto. And there's an import feature there that will pull in everything there and give you a nice desktop. Yeah, it's early days yet, so we'll see how that goes. So that's, AmiKit for Mac, and you can go to amikit.amiga.sk to check that out.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, John Chucky Hurtle is a name that most people are familiar with at this stage for his various hardware projects and reverse engineering shenanigans. But he has reverse engineered the Amiga 1200 motherboard, and he's released the files now so that anyone can basically take the files, go to a PCB manufacturer, and have the bare motherboard for an Amiga 1200 made up. So this is really good for people who have damaged motherboards, from capacitor leakage, or who just want to have a black motherboard in their translucent case. It has some minor updates like the option to use a different type of power connector and, a couple of other small fixes like that. A spot for a VGA connector so you can, so you don't have to try and find the 23 pin to 15 pin adapters, and a couple of other small changes. But it's a great project, and it's an awful lot of work gone into it. Now, it's not cheap, but you will find some people, because boards like that are best ordered in a bunch. You'll find a few people are selling them at the moment, including John himself. If you have access to the chips, or if you've a dead motherboard, otherwise it might be a good option if you have that kind of soldering skill.
Yeah, that's interesting. So is this a case of like where the file with the wiring is shared, or is there just a sort of a final output file that you have to and it can just be produced in one way?
I think at the moment it's just the Gerbers with just the output file, but I know the plan is to have it fully open source at some point. So I know there were a couple of mistakes in the first revision and they've been fixed now. So I think he just wants to get it sort of to a finished state before it's fully released. But now I could be wrong in that. Now I was only looking at the Gerbers myself. But yeah.
I remember in college way back in the late 90s, we used some program on DOS to design your PCB, your schematic, and then it would make optimizations itself to sort of tighten it up as much as possible, and you could make it was pretty cool actually. It looked incredible. It was visually pretty impressive. It looked very kind of futuristic, but so like I was, just as you were kind of describing that there, I was wondering, geez, I wonder could you even remap that to a different form factor but leaving the connectors for peripherals the same?
Once you have the schematic like that, it's not that big a deal to move things around. It's very time consuming because the rerouting is best off done by hand. Like, the computer will do so much, but after that you have to kind of do it yourself really. So it is time consuming, but it is doable. And like there's a case in point, there are 3-4 projects for doing a similar job on the Amiga 4000 now, including one guy who's reconfigured it to a standard ATX format. So you can stick it in a standard PC case, including ATX power supply and, the normal power switches and things like that. So, it is possible once you have the sort of the groundwork done to basically modify it any way you want.
Yeah, well, fair play, John. Thanks for that. I've an Amiga 1200 myself, so it's good to hear. The Amiga Future Archive number 4 DVD has been launched at Gamescom in Cologne, and it contains issues from 11 to 130, although the actual English versions start a bit later than that, somewhere around the 60s. And the entire archive is available on DVD for €29 excluding shipping.
Modern Amiga Demo cross-development was a seminar from the Evoke demo party which took place in Cologne, Germany. So you'll find the link in the show notes, a YouTube link in which you will be able to see how to create a modern Amiga demo.
Banjo guy Ollie has released a really good cover of the Lemmings Level 6 music. I'm not even going to try and give a rendition of it here, but it's really good. He's gotten all of the little details of the song and reproduced them acoustically using his own instruments, and it's absolutely fantastic. Head over to bandcamp.com and download a copy for yourself. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Mm? Yeah, it's very good. It's amazing how music like that sticks with you. And, sort of instantly recognizable then, when you hear it anywhere else.
Absolutely. There are, timeless tunes, like, for example, music from Last Ninja 2 as well, especially on C64 for me. Or music from, like Monkey Island.
Yeah.
Yeah, another one.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to give this a go, right? So in case anyone doesn't know exactly what Lemmings Level 6 music is, which is understandable, it's the one that goes do, 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 do. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that's instantly recognizable, even if you're singing.
Absolutely. We just need some, like a beatbox as well.
Cool, let's start our own Bandcamp channel.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good stuff.
Right. What's next, guys? What's next?
Okay. The Checkmate 1500 Plus case that Stephen Jones has been working on he has launched a Kickstarter for that. So there's still some time left on that if you want to back it, but it's already looking very good. It was over 40% only after the first couple of days. It's well on its way there. If you haven't been following it, that's a big project for creating a new computer case that's suitable for small format PCs as well as for Amiga 500, 600 and 1200s, and Raspberry Pis and standalone Vampires planned to be supported as well. The idea is that it's all modular and it can be chopped and changed, but it's styled to look like an Amiga 3000. Will be available in white and black. Really, really looks good. Kickstarter link is in the show notes. Give that a look. That's something I've been working on myself. I've been doing some of the boards for inside, like the Zorro slot for the Amiga 500 and so on, the LED board, things like that. Big project, and well done, Stephen.
Yeah, it does look great. Like, I'm very attached to the kind of 500, 1200 design, but I was looking at this and it just looks like the last case you need. You know, you can do anything with it and you can get in and make changes more easily and stuff like that. So I'm not surprised it's so popular. And I know there's a few people here in Ireland and in Galway here, even where I am, that have backed it. So,
oh, great.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, to me it looks like a mixture of, like a case from Amiga 3000 and actually Amiga 1000, because there's a small garage that you can hide your keyboard underneath. And I think Stephen is also planning to release, or start a Kickstarter campaign for a special Amiga keyboard that can fit inside that garage, which adds even more style to the case, in my opinion, So
wow.
Fingers crossed in general.
Absolutely, yeah.
Geez, the more I think of it, like, it could actually save a lot of space. Like, when I set up the 1200 and the monitor and, there's like cables everywhere, I might actually need to go and get one of those.
Go for it.
Yeah, what the hell. David Pleasance's book has returned from print and distribution, should begin in the coming days. He expects delivery on September 14th. Yeah, so sorry, it's not quite received yet from print. It's 368 pages, and he's asked people to be patient because himself and his two sons are going to be packaging and shipping the book, the Blu-ray, and the Everybody's Girlfriend audio music CD, which I'm really looking forward to getting because I'd actually been looking for that online for a few months before he announced it would be released, and it doesn't seem to be available. So it's going to take them a few days to get these sent out. And for anybody who hasn't ordered it yet, you can go to downtimepublishing.com and get a copy.
Finally.
Yeah, finally.
Right, a new disc mag called A Mag is starting up and has an online group. So if you are into reading, like disc mags, and you remember them from the 80s, for example, or from the 90s, feel free to have a look in the show notes and join the group.
Yeah, so best of luck to the two guys who are starting that up.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck, guys.
Let's move on to the games.
First game is called Insidia. Insidia is a story about a traveller who makes an emergency landing to a dark and strange planet in order to fix his ship. And the main goal of Insidia is to find 10 repair kits and fix your ship. The game actually itself was written in Flash, some time ago, and then a Polish guy called Czesław Mnich, actually he lives in Ireland, in Dublin. He managed to make it work on Amiga and using Backbone. It took him quite some time to make it work, but the final result is really, really astonishing. And the game itself doesn't feel actually, and doesn't look like as if it was made in Backbone. So great work, Czesiu. Great work.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying that out. We must give him a shout actually and see if he's around in January. Rocket Smash is a jetpack clone for the Commodore 64, and there's a link in the show notes that'll take you to a tweet by the project Eric Nelson on Twitter, who put us onto it, because the previous week we were talking about an attempt to kind of make a more kind of, direct representation of the Spectrum version of Jetpack. So this one is actually much smoother, and while it doesn't kind of look like, it doesn't harken back directly to the old Spectrum Jetpack, it is a really nice, smooth, fast, slick version and well worth checking out. So thanks, Eric, for putting us onto that.
Pong 4, which is sort of a different take on, the old classic Pong. And it can be played more or less like the original, only sort of top to bottom. But it also has a 4-player mode where you can either have 2 paddles, one on the top, one on the bottom, 2 paddles on the top, 2 paddles on the bottom, or have 1 player on each side of the screen. So, all 4 walls of the arena, if you like. Yeah, it's a really nice take on the classic, and it looks brilliant. There's some good music in it, and it's well polished, and it pretty sure it runs on pretty much anything. It's on a 500 anyway, and it might run, I think, in 512K as well. It's for 2 to 4 players, but you can play against the AI as well. So you can play in any of the modes with the computer filling in for the other players. So it's really well done.
It sounds like a good one for meetups and stuff like that.
I agree.
Absolutely, yeah. It's free to download from Aminet, actually.
Next game is for C64, and it's got a very peculiar title. The title of the next game is You Have to Win the Game. I've never encountered, a title of a game like that before. Anyway, it's a really nice platformer. It's got a CGA palette and very nice sprites and pretty neat controls. It's a platformer, and it's been released by a group called Kabuto. I found this game, PoetNet, the biggest, demo scene portal, looking for some new C64 demos, and I found this game and I felt like I'm just going to give it a go. Looks like a CGA game from, old PC times, but to be honest, it's a pretty neat platformer.
Cool. Yeah, I haven't looked at this now. But there's a lot of good C64 stuff here, coming out recently. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Sir Ababal has been ported to the Amiga, and this is reported by Indie Retro News, and they say that the Amiga version started as an internal exercise learning how to make a direct port from C sources to Amiga Blitz Basic, and the game is the end result. It looks really good, so the link is in the show notes for anyone that wants to have a look at the demo. Sorry, it's not a demo, it's an actual release. Yeah.
Yeah. Just as I was saying about C64 stuff, there's a take on Portal for the C64 in the works. So that's being worked on. This is an interesting one. You don't have the full 3D engine of the original. It's on a platform kind of format. From what you can see in the videos, it looks very interesting. A great take on the whole mechanics of the portal gun, and that apparently is going to support mouse control as well.
Very nice logic game, I think.
That's amazing. I can't even imagine what it might look like, but I'll definitely check it out after we finish recording.
Yeah, dude, it looks great.
Okay, let's move on to discoveries.
And our first discovery is the AGA Amiga 3000. Apparently, some fans from Germany found the boards of Commodore prototype AA3000, and they've decided to actually equip it with, with chips. And they've managed to run the board, actually, and the board itself runs pretty well. They've decided to play Starstruck TBL demo, and it's played really well. So, respect, guys. Once again, it's a great discovery and a great achievement.
Okay, so that wasn't a typo. It is AA3000.
Yeah, it was supposed to be, Amiga 3000. Then they cut it into pieces and made the Amiga 4000 that we know it all.
And also, AGA was originally known as AA, and they changed it to AGA, presumably to sound more like the PC.
To cut costs even more, they adapted, a ugly PC case. The rest is history.
Oh, well. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, my discovery is a very simple one, really, but I discovered that the Bifrost is actually pronounced and spelled Bifrost, not Bitfrost. So, I've been doing it for ages. And every time anyone has said it to me, when I think back, they did say Bifrost. I've read Bifrost, and for some reason I've been saying Bitfrost. So I was watching Miss Mad Lemon's video that she just released a few days ago, where she installs one, and she does a nice little modification to stop the light leaking between the different bulbs and stuff like that. So it's the Bifrost. I'll get it right from now on.
Good stuff. And yeah, there's a few times you said it, and I kind of like, I'll tell him later, and then I forget.
Well, a lot of the time you're wasting your time with my memory, you know. But I think after watching a 20-minute video on it now, I will definitely remember.
Right, yeah. My discovery is a new games magazine that has come out, and that covers, it's called Fusion Magazine, and it covers retro games as well as current games, and things like arcades, tabletop games, card games, things like that. It covers sort of the whole spectrum of gaming, but it has a quite good coverage of the C64 and mentions the Amiga as well, and so that they've got their first issue out at the moment. There's one of the guys in the Scottish Amiga user group who does a fair bit of writing to them. So hello, John. Thanks for that. And yeah, it really looks good. So you should definitely check that out.
Nice. Yeah, I actually recognise the name Fusion Games from Twitter, I think.
Because it really is a nice read. It's, covers a lot of stuff, and there's, reviews and sort of previews and stuff like that as well.
Okay, let's go on to community news and events. The Computer and Communications Museum of Ireland are hosting an event on this Friday coming. That's the 7th of September. And this is the first of the monthly First Friday Club meetings. So the first Friday of every month, all the Commodore and Amiga machines will be up and running. We'll have the CD32 hooked up to a projector, and people are on the Amiga Ireland Facebook page nominating games they'd like to do competitions in. And I think I've seen so far games like IK Plus, Speedball, Spy vs Spy, and a couple others have been nominated. So yeah, that's going to be fun. So if you're in Galway, or you can make it to Galway on Friday, we'll be meeting from 5:30 until 8 o'clock in the evening. So feel free to pop in.
Yeah, hopefully that gets a bit of momentum, because I'm sure at some point I will be down in Galway and we'll try and make it to
Excellent.
Second Scottish Amiga user group meeting there a couple of weeks back, and that was that went really, really well. We had quite a busy day. It was sort of 25 people or so at it, and we had our Sensible Soccer tournament and all the usual things, and some pretty interesting machines out and about. A great meetup, and great to see all the guys there. So we're planning to have the next one in February, so we're going for every 6 months or so. But, looking forward to the next one already.
More power to you. Fair play for starting up.
Yeah, cheers.
Okay, let's move on to Ask Amiga.
This is another question that I dug up on the Retro Computing Stack Exchange, and is basically sort of questioning the logic of the memory map on the Amiga, because the 68000 processor, like a lot of other processors, has a fixed address where it starts up. So when you start a processor from cold, it has to look for its first instruction somewhere, and usually that's sort of a fixed address, like either 0 or the very far end of the memory map, the highest address possible. And then that's normally where you have your ROM, you see. So the first thing the CPU sees is the ROM of the computer and starts executing the code there. And from there, it starts up the computer as you know it. But they don't do that on the Amiga. So the CPU looks in address 0 and tries to start off from the very bottom of the memory map. But that's actually where the chip RAM is in the Amiga map. And it's a kind of a funny setup. The kickstart is way down the other end of the map. But so by default, if you just start the machine like that, the CPU has nothing to do because the memory is empty. It sees 0 instructions and it just sits there. So how it actually works on the Amiga is that very, very early, at a sort of an electronic level, the CIAs in the first Amigas, the Amiga 1000, actually flip a little switch, an electronic switch that makes the kickstart appear at address 0. So it basically overwrites the address of the chip RAM with the kickstart. Then the CPU sees it at address 0, starts executing the code, and then once it writes to the CIAs and resets them, then the kickstart moves to the correct location and the chip RAM is restored. But by that stage, the code is already running and the computer knows what to do then. So it's it seems like a funny way of doing things, but for computers like the Amiga, it actually makes a bit of sense, because what it does is that lets you do things like install reset resident things so that you can basically upgrade Kickstart, like OS 3.9 and that, or install all sorts of different patches, the new SCSI drivers, all sorts of tricks. Basically, it's to sort of modify the ROM, which wouldn't otherwise be possible. Obviously because it's a ROM. So it's a nice solution, and the solution is sort of part of the Motorola specification for if you wanted to make a system that does that kind of thing. So it's actually kind of a standard enough design for the 68000, but it's unusual in the broad scheme of home computers, if you like, for it to work like that. Once the CIA is reset, that's it, it's done, and the Kickstart is at its normal location. And that's called the overlay bit coming from the CIAs. But it's actually I think it's in the Agnes chip from fairly early on. So I think from the 500 on, it's actually, it's not on the CIA anymore. It's just, it's intercepted even before the CIA. It's just carried out on, within the Agnes chip itself. Yeah. And that's it. So ever since then, it does that, but just internally in the custom chips.
It's very interesting. So a little bit of redirection or indirection or whatever you call it.
Yeah. And they call it the overlay bit because essentially it overwrites the chip RAM and overlays the Kickstart over the chip RAM. Yeah, it's an interesting technique.
Okay, thanks for that, Rob. We're going to move on now to online activity to see what's been going on, to see what's been happening with the online Amiga Ireland community. So for starters, we got an email from Athens in Greece. So hi to George, and thanks for your email. George's website is in the show notes if anyone wants to have a look. It's walkaero.gr. And George is a web developer, and he says, I'd like to congratulate you about the great podcast you create and the Amiga events you organise. I intend to visit the next event and meet you guys there. Keep up the good work and the support you provide the Amiga community. Yeah, so T. Canis, George, Kala.
Excellent.
Thanks for the lovely feedback. Yeah, we look forward to January. And on Twitter, our top tweets this month were photos from our last museum meetup, so you can visit us. We're Amiga Ireland on Twitter, and you can check those out. On Facebook, James posted a receipt from his 1990 Amiga purchase of the Amiga 500 Batman pack with some extras. So you can see that in our Facebook group, and there's an old phone number in there. And we were joking about, phoning the number to see what was going on there. Well, James, I actually phoned the number just for the crack to see what was going on. And there was some slightly elderly woman left a voicemail. And I did leave a little message asking, saying I'm just inquiring if the computer shop is still there or what happened to it. So I haven't heard back. So who knows, the guards could be looking me up now for all I know.
Yeah.
Pranksters,
He wants to be my Amiga, he says, or he wants me to be his Amiga. And Seamus has started a brilliant series of posts on our Facebook group, which are games in themselves. So what he does is he posts, he gets either a screenshot of a game or, a well-known logo from an Amiga brand, like let's say, Ocean Software or something like that, or Sierra. And he obscures them in some way. Like, for example, the most recent one is he puts a brick wall in front of them, but removes one of the bricks. So he posts it up and says, okay, make your best guess and I'll remove one brick at a time, Or on another one, he decreased the resolution so it was really kind of blocky. And he increases the resolution as people want to guess. So the winners so far have been Gavin Byrne and Moya Jackie McGeough. So that's great fun, Seamus. Thanks, and please keep it up.
Yeah, they're great posts, actually.
They really are, yeah. They're a lot of fun. I find them logging in even more often now. Next time, in 2 weeks, we're going to release an interview with David Pleasance and Trevor Dickinson. So they're going to talk about a range of different things. It's going to actually be about a 90-minute podcast next time. So it's going to be one of our longer ones. So make sure you don't miss that, because that was actually a fun few chats with the guys. Music was by Virtual Dimensions and Banjo Guy Ollie, and you can visit banjoguyollie.bandcamp.com to check out his music, including the Lemmings cover we just talked about there earlier. The song this month is from Carrier Command. Lads, did you buy that in budget form, or did you get the original kind of with the audio tape?
I have to admit, I never played it.
At that time in Poland, it was very difficult to get, like an original game. And as far as I remember, it was a strategic game.
It was. You could say it's like Frontier on sea. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you have a massive carrier ship that you're bringing around, but you can also launch these sea-based vessels called walruses, and you can launch aircraft as well called mantas, and you can set them on autopilot, but you can fly them individually, arm them with weapons, all kinds of things. So you're going around to these different islands, and you're trying to capture more islands than your opponent who starts on the other end of the map. And you're looking for resources and to build factories to build more weapons and things that you need. It's an absolutely engrossing game. It's so engrossing. I remember speaking with Paul Kitching about this at the last Amiga Ireland, I think, or actually I think it was we were chatting on Amiga Bill's, one of Amiga Bill's Twitch streams. It's a fantastic game. Yeah, definitely. If you haven't played it, check it out, because it's an absolute treat. Like, it's not that kind of game where there's other games sort of like it. It's very unique and well done, 3D. So we're going to play out with the bonus audio tape from Carrier Command, and it's a nice cheesy 80s tune. So until 2 weeks' time, that's bye from us.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh my god, I'm wrecked.
Yeah.